What's going on, football fans? We're back again with some more NFL game preview. Today we're going to be talking about Thursday's game between the Seahawks and Cardinals. Game's going to be played in Arizona. Arizona is coming off a win against the 49ers, a game in which Adrian Peterson carried the ball close to 40 times. The Cardinals are going to be without Carson Palmer. They have Drew Stanton playing quarterback against a very good defense in Seattle, but a team that lost to Washington at home in the final, minute and a half, I guess you can say, in that game. This has been my problem with Seattle all years, that offensive line. That offensive line doesn't give any type of running room for their running backs. Russell Wilson anytime. They did get Dwayne Brown, but the four other guys are pretty below average. Arizona's front seven is pretty good. Their defense in general is very good, actually. They haven't lived up to what they have, but they have a lot of good pieces. They can get after the quarterback. They can cause a couple turnovers. That defense is probably the best side of the ball for the Arizona Cardinals. I think the last two times these two teams played in Arizona was at 6-6 tie in Arizona. So, this is going to be an interesting matchup. It's an NFC West game. Arizona's rolling in at 4-4, and Seattle's at 5-3. Both teams looking up at the Rams right now. I think we're going to preview the Rams this week too as they play the Texans. But yeah, looking at this matchup here, a couple key things to look at here is our overall matchups and our 3 reasons why, as usual. So a key matchup to look up for here is that Arizona front seven versus that Seattle offensive line. I just think that the narrative is just holding true. Seattle needs to start drafting offensive linemen or start paying offensive linemen in free agency. It's got to be one way or the other because they're not developing the guys that they have. The guys that they have are very average. So this front seven led by Chandler Jones, Son Reddick, those guys, they need to get pressure on Russell Wilson. But by pressure, they need to stay in their rush lanes, keep him in the pocket type of stuff. I expect Doug Baldwin to be shadowed by Patrick Peterson almost all game. So it's going to be up to those other guys in the passing game: Jimmy Graham, Paul Richardson, Tyler Lockett, those guys. And on top of it, Arizona's front seven should make it tough to run the ball. It's just something that we're going to have to be looking at here in this matchup is the front seven versus that offensive line. If, like every other Seattle game, if you can contain Russell Wilson in the pocket and not let him leave the pocket, it definitely makes it very hard for Seattle to win games because Russell Wilson is such a freelancing quarterback once he gets out of the pocket, and his receivers know how to extend their routes or go towards where he's going. So that's one key matchup here. Another key matchup is going to be Arizona's if Arizona's willing to constantly pound the ball. They ran the ball 40 plus times with against San Francisco. I think they only threw the ball 30 times in that same game, and Drew Stanton was only 15 of 30. He had a couple of big plays, but something that Bruce Arians does that other teams' offensive-minded coaches don't do when they have a backup in is they don't throw the ball down the field. Bruce Arians has shown the willingness to throw down the field, even with Drew Stanton. Stanton's been in the system for a little while. He's been here, so he should be able to make audibles. But I expect Arizona to constantly, pound the ball in with Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson is a once-in-a-lifetime running back. So this is a matchup for him. It's going to be huge for Arizona. If Arizona could come out of this game and they could run the ball 35 times as a team, rush for over 100, I think that puts them in enough of a position to win this game. And then our third and final key matchup here is going to be Patrick Peterson versus Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin is a phenomenal, underappreciated, underrated receiver in the NFL today. Patrick Peterson is a lockdown corner. Now, Seattle relies so much more on the passing game than they have. Over the last 5 years, they've relied more on the passing game each and every single year. The amount of their run-to-pass ratio has leaned more towards pass-heavy the last couple years. So, and Doug Baldwin has turned into a phenomenal receiver from the last 5 years, So, this is a huge matchup. Patrick Peterson, Doug Baldwin. If you can keep Doug Baldwin under wraps, 3 or 4 catches, under 50 yards. You have a great chance to win this game because of those other receivers. Jimmy Graham is not the same tight end he was in New Orleans. The other receivers are not, they're all the same built as Doug Baldwin, but Doug Baldwin is special between those guys. And, it's up to players like Paul Richardson to find. I mean, Arizona's pass defense is pretty solid, with Tyrann Mathieu, you know, Patrick Peterson, and those other guys that they have. It just makes it so hard to beat them through the air that you kind of have to, like, take your chances. But they are beatable in the back four and in the front seven. But this defense, in this game, this is going to be a defensive struggle, I believe, especially because it's a Thursday night game. It just makes it a little bit tougher. But Doug Baldwin versus Patrick Peterson is a huge matchup. We're just going to have to keep our eye on that, especially on a Thursday night game. Most teams don't like to throw the ball much on Thursday night games. They like to work the clock and get the game over as fast as they can. And special teams is going to play a huge factor in this game, so look for that. Our 3 reasons why now, though. So this game is played in Arizona, so Seattle's not going to have the 12th man. Seattle is not the same team that they have been the last couple of years. We know that. We know that. They're not the same dominant NFC West team that they have been. They are vulnerable right now. I see ESPN, I've seen Fox Sports, I've seen, a couple of NFL Network analysts say that Seattle's still going to represent the NFC. I don't see that just because of their defense, but their defense is not even the same. That offensive line, you need an offensive line in December, in January, in February, and I just don't see that with them. But yeah, now jumping to our 3 reasons why. Let's go ahead and start with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, for Seattle, it's very plain and simple. Keep Russell Wilson up. Keep his jersey clean. I played offensive line in high school. I played it in Pop Warner. I didn't continue playing football. The goal every week is to keep your quarterback clean, have a clean pocket, and you want to open up some holes for some of these running backs. And I know they don't have the best running backs and they don't have the best offensive line, but you need to be able to. Russell Wilson is great in play action rollout. You need to be able to emphasize that your quarterback can get outside the pocket and move, and play action rollouts are great. Number 2 for Seattle. It's going to be, slowing down Adrian Peterson. If this guy carries the ball 30 times for 80 yards, that's a win. That's a win all day. I expect Arizona to rely so heavily on this run game. But if Seattle's able to contain him, below 80 yards, they're going to win this game. Drew Stanton is not that great of a quarterback, which leads into our next thing is getting pressure on Drew Stanton. The Legion of Boom is still a very good secondary. It's not the same secondary that it was when they were all, probably everybody was afraid to throw on them. They are still very dominant. When Earl Thomas misses a game, that defense is vulnerable. I believe he missed the last game, so that defense was vulnerable in the big play area because he's the center fielder of their cover 3. So there's that. If they can get pressure on Drew Stanton, force him into some mistakes, they'll very easily win this game. Now, 3 reasons why for Arizona here. Now, for Arizona, it's plain and simple. Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson needs to touch the ball, and he needs to touch the ball a lot. If he can get around 4.5 yards per carry, he finishes with over 100 yards. I think that Arizona has put themselves in a good enough position to win this game as long as Drew Stanton doesn't have any turnovers. Which leads to number 2 is, on the flip side for Arizona, Drew Stanton can't turn the ball over in this game. He has to be efficient. He has to be effective. He has to, if Bruce Arians dials up some play action, you need to be effective with your play action because Adrian Peterson, they're going to run the ball a lot. I expect them to fully run the ball a lot. And number 3 is getting pressure on Russell Wilson, staying in your rush lanes, keeping him contained in the pocket. Don't let him escape, roll out, all that stuff, do all that stuff where it's like, go that way, go this way, come back, as a quarterback. You don't want none of that on your defense because it's just not fair to try to cover guys when, it's freelance mode, it's scramble mode, I guess you can say. So it's going to be dependent upon, keeping Russell Wilson in that pocket in their front 7 when they rush him. And I know the defensive coordinator of Arizona in the past has sent exotic blitz packages over the course of his defensive coordinator tenure, so look for those things. My prediction for this game is that even though I think Seattle is not the same powerhouse that they were in the NFC, I do think that they'll find a way to win this game. I don't expect a high-scoring matchup. I'm thinking 17-10, 17-13 Seattle with the win. I think just Russell Wilson makes a couple of big plays outside of the pocket by extending plays and finding guys in scramble mode. I do think that Seattle's rush defense does stop Adrian Peterson just enough to slow him down. I'm thinking below 90 yards. So I'm going to take Seattle 17-10. Very tough game. It's going to be an ugly Thursday night game. Thank you for watching. I'm out. Peace.